What's up, Wizrrd here again. Today I'm bringing you something kind of different. A build guide for Krieg in Borderlands 2. Specifically, if you're wanting to do a no gear run. So recently I've been doing a no gear run with Krieg in Borderlands 2. I'll make sure that I include it in the description here as well. So the build that we're looking at right now is the build that I ended up with at the end of that challenge. Now, this is not necessarily what I would recommend. We're going to do a few things a little bit differently, but this is the build that I was doing in those videos. This is the actual max level build. The most important thing with this build is the blue tree. Playing no gear in Borderlands 2 is challenging in the beginning. It's quite difficult, really. You have to just claw your way into getting that action skill. Once you get the action skill, that's a game changer, of which there are several in this build for Krieg. By the end of the first playthrough, you're probably going to be rolling through enemies much the same as you would if you were using a full set of gear. And that is something really special. So if you're looking for a little extra challenge, if you're looking for an extra reason to play Borderlands 2 again, I'm here to bring it to you, you know what I'm saying? Now, I do think that there's an argument that Axton is probably really good for this challenge also. I also think Gage is probably actually the best one. It's probably easiest for Gage. Krieg has really got a fun factor going though, dude. I got to tell you. And bonus points if you really want to be, you know, #1 top badass and bring the finger guns with Salvador. Anyway, I'm sidetracking myself. We need to stay locked in here. We're talking about No Gear Krieg. We're starting with the Mania tree. The first thing that you need is the action skill. You'll get it at level 5. The second game changer skill is in the blue tree. It's right here. Light the fuse. Now, many of you are going to be familiar, but I'm going to do this in a similar way to the build guides that I did for Borderlands 3. So I'm going to break down exactly how all this works. Now, I am going to assume that you've got more knowledge of the game because you're not going to be here watching a no gear guide unless you've played the game before. If you want a more generalized build guide for this guy and the other Borderlands 2 characters, sure, I can do that. Just let me know in the comments. I am a river to my people. I enjoy bringing you the videos that you want to watch. Anyway, Light the Fuse is the second big game changer skill. It changes your fight for your lifetime. So instead of falling to your knee and having your weapon, or in this case, nothing, to fight your way back into life by getting a kill, you instead light the fuse and do not fall to the ground. You can still run and sprint full speed. You have a stack of dynamite that you will take one stick out of and throw it at enemies as your weapon. So you get a ranged attack, a ranged explosive attack. The Borderlands 2 AI is smarter than they should be in certain ways. When you go down, a lot of characters, a lot of enemies will run and hide from you. And when you're down and all you can do is melee, they can run from you faster than you can keep up with them. Very frustrating. Going down is basically a death until you get to level 16 and can grab Light the Fuse. If you can get to this point, you have passed the most tedious part of it. Once you get to this skill, it changes significantly. It's probably the one that feels the most impactful. There are other important skills here. I'm going to run down what all of them do, but we're going to go over the ones that truly changed the game here first. The next is right here. Silence the voices. This increases your melee damage by a huge amount. 5 points gives you plus 250% melee damage. There is a downside. There's a 12% chance that you will hit yourself in the face when you melee. And that can be really frustrating. I personally feel like you're less likely to hit yourself if you're not spamming the attack button. Try and hit the attack button to swing exactly once every time that you're actually doing a melee hit. For me, anytime that I get frantic and I start spamming it, pressing the button like 3 or 4 times for every one swing, it's inevitable. Almost every time I hit myself in the face. Now that's probably just a coincidence, but yeah, there it is. The most frustrating part about this is that there will be times where you hit yourself in the face 2 or even 3 times in a row. This skill will kill you sometimes, but it will also make you one-shot enemies, or at least 2-shot them. And that's just, it's worth the trade. Not to mention, with the no gear situation, there's going to come points, especially in certain boss fights, where you actually need to take a little bit of damage. You might end up smacking yourself in the face and doing exactly the right amount of damage you needed to do, because the next game-changing skill is the capstone of this tree, Release the Beast. It says, Activating Buzz Axe Rampage when below 33% health transforms you into a badass psycho mutant and restores 100% of your health. During the Badass Rampage, you gain increased melee damage and damage resistance. When you return to normal, your Buzz Axe Rampage is instantly recharged. If you do not wait until you are at 33% or lower health, you get your normal Buzz Axe Rampage, not enhanced with the extra 100% melee damage or the 100% damage reduction. And most importantly, you don't get your health instantly refilled and you don't get your action skill instantly back when it ends. There will be a red triangle with an exclamation point on it next to your health when you are below the 33% health. It makes a big difference when you have something there telling you, so you know for a fact that you're below 33% health. But with this action skill and with a little bit of practice, you can get to where you are chaining action skills back to back, just constantly one after the other. It gets to a point where you actually need to cycle it to get your health back faster. Of course, the Buzz Axe Rampage gives you full health when you kill an enemy. That works just fine most of the time, but against some bosses, it's a little trickier. Ultimately, though, those are the most important things. Those are the skills that are actually the most critical. I'm going to go through, now that I've talked about those, the most important ones, and talk about exactly why we took each one. And I'm going to do it in the order that I would take them when I was leveling. Pull the pin is the first skill that I would put a point into. When you die and you go to respawn, you will drop a grenade with this skill, and if that grenade gets a kill after you have died and are respawning, then it will double the experience you gain from the kill, just getting you where you want to go a little faster. Now later on, you may want to spec out of this skill. Once you start getting the cycle going that I mentioned before, you don't really die that much. And maybe that point's better used somewhere else. I've got it here in the final tree because honestly, once you're on level 80, there's a lot less that really matters for you to put a point in. Anyway, after pull the pin, I would go probably into feed the meat, which gives you more max health. The negative of the shield recharge doesn't matter because you don't have a shield. But extra health means you're less likely to die, obviously, but also with the Buzz Axe Rampage, you will get back more health when you get kills. A little more survivability is really what you need the most early on, especially before you get Light the Fuse. Now, you may prefer to do a little more damage, and that's fine if you want to. Empty the Rage is great. Also, just remember when you're taking this that you're only getting the 4% per point, ultimately giving you 20% more melee damage, because the extra 50% is just while your shield or magazine is empty. You don't have a shield or magazine. Neither one is empty. So this is only going to give you 20% melee damage, but 20%, you know, that's still good. That's another reason why I would take the health though, because you're getting the full benefit from this without the downside. Fuel the Rampage is a skill that will help you greatly. So I would go pull the pin and then 4 into feed the meat, and then I would put 5 right here to fuel the Rampage. It makes it so you can take friendly fire, which is not important if you're playing solo. It's maybe not that big of a deal if you're not playing solo. It's a skill that I would not recommend normally doing a typical Krieg build, but with no gear, it works really well. You're taking damage, you get the action skill back faster. So once I've got that, then I definitely take Light the Fuse as soon as you can. Oh, I forgot to mention with Light the Fuse, it makes it so you throw in the dynamites and you can sprint and run towards enemies. But it also ends with an explosion, a rather large explosion. As big as your grenade radius, maybe a little bigger. So you want to be near an enemy that you can maybe kill with that explosion. And if that explosion does kill an enemy, you don't die. You just back up. And the explosion does a decent amount more damage than the thrown sticks of dynamite do. But right now, at this point, the dynamite's going to be doing a pretty good amount of damage. Now, it scales less as you level up. The higher you go in the game, the less effective this is going to be. But it will still be helpful because you can still sprint. Still going to give you a better chance than if you didn't have it with no guns. After Light the Fuse, I would put 1 point into Thrill of the Kill. It reads, a percentage of your overkill damage restores your health. The lower your health, the greater the percentage. And the reason that I would put 1 point into this is because 1 point will give you up to 50% of the overkill damage back as lifesteal. After 1 point, each point gives you another 10% back. And then I would put points either into Strip the Flesh, which gives you more explosive damage, put 3 points here to get the extra melee damage. And once you've got that, you can get down to this tier. But I wouldn't take this right now. This is a very late point spent. I'd probably put 2 more points into this and then go ahead and put 3 here for the more explosive damage. But you can do those in the order you choose. At that point, you'll have these 4, this 1 point here, 3 points here, and you'll be far enough down the tree for the next 5 points to go into Silence the Voices. So take those for sure, grab that capstone, and then it's kind of up to you. At this point, you're probably near the end of the game. Your character has achieved almost peak performance. The main thing that I would do past this point is the green tree. Now, I didn't use the green tree in my run. I felt like the red tree was going to be giving me more benefit ultimately. Since I've done the run, I've leveled up a little more and I've done some testing with both the trees specifically to give me the knowledge I needed to tell you exactly what's best here, at least in my opinion. The red tree is a letdown in several ways. This skill right here, Buzzaxe Bombarder, is enough to make the green tree better. The red tree gives you the ability to set enemies on fire with your melee attack. It also gives you this very cool but ultimately gimmicky fire breathing skill that replaces your melee, but it's got a 15-second cooldown, and it kind of feels weaker. Buzzaxe Bombarder attaches a stick of dynamite to your Buzzaxe. When you use Buzzaxe Rampage, you can swing the Buzzaxe with your normal melee attacks, or you can throw the Buzzaxe. When you throw the Buzzaxe, it will explode like a grenade, and with grenade damage, and it actually makes the throw almost as powerful as your melee attack. So that is the primary reason we come into the green tree. But it's not the only benefit we're getting. These 2 skills are doing absolutely nothing for us. We just have to get past them. Taste for Blood, though, actually is useful, and this is probably the second best reason to go into the green tree. It reads, while Buzzaxe Rampage is active, you gain increased damage resistance for each Bloodlust stack. Each kill during Buzzaxe Rampage rewards extra Bloodlust stacks. Now, these 2 skills also give you the ability to get Bloodlust stacks. A maximum of 100. They count down and run out fairly quickly, and what they do for you is generated from these 2 skills, and it's all useless. But this skill makes them not useless. It gives you damage resistance, so you can get up to 100% damage resistance. And I don't remember the ins and outs of Borderlands 2 quite as well as I know how it works in Borderlands 3, but I'm pretty sure 100% damage resistance does not actually reduce the damage you take to 0. But even if it did, you're only going to have 100 for like a couple seconds. So once you've got some points here, you got 5 points there, definitely grab Buzzaxe Bombarder. The Fuel the Blood skill is a kill skill. It says getting a melee kill increases your grenade damage per Bloodlust stack for a short time. Additionally, melee kills reward extra Bloodlust stacks. So then I'll put 4 points here after the 1 here that gets you deep enough to get this. Boiling Blood delays the decay of the Bloodlust stacks, and that will just keep the Bloodlust stacks there longer, giving you damage resistance for a longer period of time. After that, I would personally fill this up, put that 5th point in there, and then I would put points here. But the thing about this is, let me read the skill for you. Each Bloodlust stack extends your Buzzaxe Rampage duration upon activation. The thing about this is, when you're cycling the action skill, if you're fighting a boss or something, this is a more intense, longer fight. Maybe there aren't a huge number of ads, or maybe they're tricky to get to sometimes. When you activate the skill at 30% health, 33% health or lower, you're getting your health back. If the action skill lasts for too long, you might go down before it ends. As counterintuitive as it seems, it's almost better to have a good cycle going, where you've got the action skill going for just the right amount of time, they've done enough damage to you, just enough, that you are ready to activate it again, right about the time it's running out. If your action skill lasts for too long, that becomes more tricky. You have to be more careful about the damage you're taking. It is also nice to have it last longer sometimes and not have to do the loop. Starting the action skill has a few moments of invulnerability while you transform, but that's also just extended time. And after you've been using the action skill for an hour or two, it does start to feel a little boring waiting for Krieg to transform. So it is nice for it to last a little bit longer, just maybe not too long, you know what I mean? And 4 is probably too long, honestly. The sweet spot is probably like 1 or 2 points into this, and you can just throw the other 2 points anywhere else in the tree. These other skills here that I have no points in this build do absolutely nothing for us. It will not affect us in any way. The important part is that you've spent enough points to get to the capstone. So Blood Explosion reads, killed enemies trigger a matching elemental explosion after 1.5 second delay. Fire kills trigger a fire nova already after a 0.75 second delay. Physical kills trigger an explosive nova. Bloodlust stacks and any overkill damage boost the nova damage. And that boost is plus 5% damage per stack. The thing is, the nova is really small. It's like barely larger than the character is. It maybe will do some damage to some enemies, especially if you've got skags or something. If you got a group of enemies, maybe varkids, it's a thing that this will work well on. It's definitely cool. Seeing the explosion happen is nice. Once we put the point there, we are finished with the green tree. We put every point in. You can either go red tree first to make your melee attacks do fire damage, or you can finish off this so you're getting more overkill health. Of course, the thing is, at this point, when you're using your action skill back to back constantly, the action skill itself fully heals you when you kill an enemy. So this kind of becomes trivial at this point as well. You can fill up this here to make your explosion damage do more, which is perhaps what I would do next, actually. In fact, maybe as soon as I got this, I would put points into there to do extra explosive damage, because then it's boosting the damage of your thrown buzz axe. An important thing to know about throwing the buzz axe is that it does not trigger you to hit yourself in the face. So if you're using the action skill and hitting yourself in the face will likely down you and you don't want to risk it, just throw the buzz axe. Especially at this point where with the explosion it's doing nearly as much damage as your melee attacks anyway. Of course, you do still get a little bit higher burst damage when you just melee swing. It's a little faster too, and obviously harder to miss when you're close enough. Finally, the only other point we haven't spent in this blue tree yet is right here. And Redeem the Soul, if you're playing solo, is actually a very bad skill. The only reason I put the point into it is because it increases your fight for your life duration by 50%. Just gives you more time to throw more sticks of dynamite to get an enemy lower on health, maybe kill an enemy to get back up, perhaps get them low enough that the final explosion will kill them at least. Now, if you're playing with another teammate, it's fantastic. It gives you the ability to revive a teammate instantly instead of having to wait for the bar to fill, but you will die in their place. You revive them instantly and you go down. Finally, let's talk about the red tree skill. This one is ultimately useless. It gives you a 35% chance to ignite yourself when you're igniting other enemies. Pain is Power has an upside and a downside. In fact, looking at it now, maybe it would be better to take Numbed Nerves. It just gives you a little bit of extra damage resistance while you're on fire. But Pain is Power does a bunch of stuff, but the only things it's actually going to do for you is increased melee damage and decreased melee critical hit damage. You judge for yourself. If you'd rather have some damage resistance, it's fine. The reason that I was going with it to begin with, I had forgotten about the critical hit damage reduction, but I was going with it because the fact that you're healing constantly and you're getting the action skill back that'll instantly heal you when you use it. Anyway, ultimately, the entire reason for coming into this tree is just to get a 50% chance for your melee attacks to set enemies on fire. Thing is, at this point, you've taken everything that even does anything for you in the blue tree, and the same is true for the green tree. So that leaves you with 15 points that may as well go somewhere. An important thing to remember though, if you are standing directly under a flying enemy, you can look up and you can melee swing at them. No matter how high they are above you, you will hit them with a melee attack. Kind of crazy, important to know. Honestly, I should have told you earlier in the video. But here we are at the end. This is the Krieg No Gear build that I would recommend to you if you're going to do the No Gear experience. The Mania tree is where it's at. It's the most important thing. And then get that. Let me know what you think of this. If you have any other tips or tricks out there for a No Gear run, please leave them in the comments. If you'd like to see other specific build guides like this, let me know. You know, I'm not promising anything, but these are fun to make. And if you guys find them useful, that's great. If you enjoyed it, be sure to do all the YouTube things. You know how this works. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Wizrrd Out.